And Nancy Cordes joins us with more from Capitol Hill. Again, Nancy, as we saw in the piece, Republican lawmakers essentially want to put the ethics office under the control of the House committee, essentially policing itself. So what will it mean then for future investigations and really how things will operate moving forward here?
Well, the whole reason, Josh, that this independent watchdog was created was because about a decade ago, Democrats who were in power at the time felt that lawmakers couldn't always police themselves. It was in the wake of the Jack Abramoff scandal, which exposed sort of a ring of corruption. And so they created this independent group here in Congress with investigators to look into complaints about lawmakers. So what this new measure does is basically gut a lot of that group's powers and also put it, as you pointed out, under the thumb of lawmakers themselves. Now, Republicans said that they needed to do this because some lawmakers felt that they had been targeted unfairly by this watchdog group and that they didn't have enough due process. But Democrats argued, hey, look, whatever happened to draining the swamp? This is absolutely the opposite of what you promised to do. And even the House Speaker, Paul Ryan, knew how this was going to look right at the start of the 115th Congress. He urged his colleagues to vote against it, but he lost that fight.
All of which makes this a really bad look. Adding then to the optics here, if nothing else, Nancy, they passed it essentially, as has been pointed out, at night, again, on the eve of the swearing in of the new Congress. Just purely from an optics perspective, this looks pretty bad.
It does, and part of that is just simply due to the timing. Every time there's a new Congress, the party that controls Congress gets together to figure out whether it wants to change the rules that govern those 2 years of Congress, and then it gets voted on by the full House when Congress comes into session, as it will today. So, it's unfortunate for Republicans that this ends up being essentially their first move as the House majority under a Republican, soon-to-be Republican president. And there's no way around the timing, but still the House Speaker and the House Majority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, knew that it would be a big distraction from the things that they really want to be getting attention for. Things like moving quickly to repeal Obamacare or moving quickly to confirm the president-elect's nominees. They didn't want to be getting attention for this right off the bat.
Well, as this discussion shows, they certainly forecast the future, if nothing else. But as we then move to what everyone has said is item number one, the repeal and replacement of Obamacare. As you just mentioned, I think everybody agrees that the repealing is going to be something of a fait accompli, but it really seems that the replacing part of that promise still is a major snag here.
It's a big question mark because not only is it very difficult to come up with an entirely new healthcare system that preserves some of the things about Obamacare that Republicans like, but there's also the open question of whether Republicans as a whole can even agree once they do come up with a proposal that that's the right direction to go in. So it's all well and good at this point to say, hey, we're going to come up with a replacement, you're just going to have to wait for it. But you never know if they're going to be able, at the end of the day, to find consensus. Think of other things like tax reform or immigration reform that some Republicans, even Republican leaders, have wanted to tackle for multiple congressional sessions now and haven't been able to get there because there's dissent within their own ranks. And it wouldn't be much different. You saw how difficult it was for Democrats to pass the health care bill in the first place. So there really are a lot of questions here. Republicans say they are going to keep this grace period in effect where people who have health insurance through Obamacare will be able to keep it until they come up with that replacement. But here's the question, Josh. If you're a healthcare insurance company and you've been looking for a reason to bolt this system, as soon as Congress repeals it, that kind of opens the door for you to say, okay, well, at the end of this coverage period, we're pulling out. So there's a possibility that there could be a cascade of people losing their insurance and no real answer for how to help them in the short term or even in the long term.
And perhaps with unintended irony, the havoc that would wreak with premiums then is, again, something else we can only guess at this point. Meanwhile, confirmation hearings now loom. Very quickly, what to expect as they begin next week?
Well, Democrats are pushing for a few things. They'd like to have these confirmation hearings happen sequentially, so not all of these nominees being grilled at once in the various committees. They'd like to get more attention by putting them back to back. That's not going to happen. Republicans will never agree to that. They want to get these people through the confirmation process quickly and have them installed at their various agencies. Democrats are also going to try to push for some of the high-profile nominees like Rex Tillerson to hand over their tax records because they want to make a point that this is something that the president-elect himself has not been willing to do up until now.
And thus it begins. Nancy Cordes there on the Hill. We do appreciate it.
You got it, Josh.